Hey loves, and welcome to another Facebook Live video. I am Jerome Braggs, the Soul Medicine Man, and I wanted to come and share with you something that has deeply influenced my life. That was a very pivotal moment in my life that helped me transform my life and helped me change my life into the version of it that I'm living today, a version that I love, where I am fully nourished by my life, enjoy the taste of my life, and feel good inside of my life. So I wanted to share that with you today. And what I wanted to talk to about with you today are the regrets that I had when I was on my deathbed and what those regrets taught me about living a better life. So if you don't know me or if you're just new to me, my journey into becoming the Soul Medicine Man started on January 1st of 2004 when I had checked into a hospital with what I thought was the flu and ended up getting diagnosed instead with kidney failure, pancreatitis, anemia, a fluid-packed lung, a parasite in my stomach, and if all that wasn't juicy enough already, AIDS. And after the doctors read off this litany of illnesses and diseases, they said that they were giving me about 7 days to live, that the diseases had progressed to a point where they didn't know if there was going to be much they could do for me and that I needed to get my affairs in order. And so when they gave me that and they told me that and they left me in my room, I was faced with the fact of my impending death. The fact that I was, 24 years old and dying, and not just dying in a few months, but was dying in days. And what I began to do was go over some questions, which I now know with working with many people who have been near death themselves and talking to other people who've had these type of experiences. What I now know are the questions we kind of ask ourselves when we're dying. And how did I live my life? Was I happy with how I lived my life? Did I regret anything? And I want to share with you, I've talked a lot about kind of what, in other videos, what the answers were to the other questions about, how did I live my life? I definitely did not feel like I had lived it well. So I wasn't actually afraid of dying, because even at that time, even though I was 24, I was very young, I understood that death was not an ending to my being, that it was a continuation of my soul. It was just a change. I was just going to leave this body and go back into the fullness of my soul. But I was horrified because of the things that were starting to come up as regrets for me. So I wasn't afraid of dying. I was just afraid that I really hadn't really lived. And the regrets that came up for me were kind of in two different areas. One of the areas was I regretted that I never really told the people that I loved how I really felt about them. And I didn't spend enough time with them. I didn't spend enough quality time in the relationships with the people that I really loved. So one of the things I remember that it was just kept reverberating around and around in my head. So I had just graduated from college, not even probably a year before that. And so I was living in Washington, D.C., and I had moved from Atlanta. So most of my friends and everybody were in Atlanta. My family was in Oklahoma. And I was regretting, one of the things I regretted was that I wasn't going to be able to have my mother's spaghetti again. It sounds really, really small, but this was a huge thing for me because it was something that I really loved and I really enjoyed. And I never really told her how much I enjoyed her cooking and how much I really enjoyed her spaghetti. And it never really had crossed my mind what the things were in my life that really brought me the most joy. I was living a life at that time of trying to chase money. I was working a job that, although there were many things about the job that I enjoyed, I was working as a counselor and case manager. And although there were many things about the job that I enjoyed, it wasn't really what I really wanted to do. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But I was working that job because I wanted to make money. It was the money thing, and it was not what I really wanted to do. And I thought the big things that, I were chasing was like money and prestige and things like that. And I thought those were, as many of us are conditioned in society, that those are the things that are at the top pillar of what's really important. The things that you achieve in this world and the money that you make and what you're able to buy for yourself. But what I was finding that was really important to me at the end of my life was the small stuff, like eating my mother's spaghetti again, wanting my aunt to see this amazing loft that I was staying in. I wanted her to come. I wanted to see her one more time, to see the place that I was in. I wanted to tell the friends that I had how I really felt about them and how wonderful I thought they were and how they had really added into my life. And I wanted to go have fun with them again. I wanted to be silly with them and laugh with them. And I regretted that I had spent so much time working and so much time doing other things and not enough time in the relationships that I had. I wanted to spend more time going out to eat with my friends. I wanted to spend more time just being around my family and laughing around the table and being silly, because my family is really silly. We tell a lot of stories, and I just wanted more of that. Like what didn't come in my head was, let's do some more hours of work. I wish I could clock in at my job 1 or 2 more days. What didn't, come up for me was, I wish I could go shopping and buy one more thing. It wasn't anything like that. It was basically, I wish I had more time to spend with these people, and I wish we could do the silly things that we love to do, and I wish I could do the small things that brought me joy, like eating my mother's spaghetti or spending the night with my friends and being silly, or driving up the California coast, or what things like that were the things that I was regretting that I wasn't going to have. Either I wasn't going to have another chance to do, and that I didn't spend enough time doing, and that I had spent so much time on things that now, when I was dying, I realized didn't really matter to me, and the things that really mattered to me, I had spent so little time in. So the first thing was really that was put in my awareness was how important relationships are. The relationships we have with the people that we love, and not just having those relationships, but actually spending quality time in those relationships and expressing ourselves in those relationships, literally telling the people that we're in these relationships with how we feel about them, how important they are to us, what we love about them, what we appreciate about them. I remember seeing one of the things that kept scrolling across my head was how beautiful my mother and my aunt smile are. How beautiful their smiles are. They're twins, and how beautiful their smiles are, and how I love their laugh, and how infectious their laughs are, and how I never really told them how beautiful their smiles are, and how infectious their laughs are, and how I love being around them when they're smiling and laughing. And so that was a huge wake up call for me, was that the thing that's the most important, the thing that was one of the most important things to me on my deathbed wasn't the things that I had accrued, wasn't the money that I was making or that I was chasing, wasn't the job. It was the quality relationships that I had, and spending more of my life in those, and regretting that I did not do that. Regretting that I did not tell the people how I felt in my heart about them, and that I didn't spend enough time around the people that I really loved. And I also, I was regretting spending so much time around people that I didn't. The people that weren't really the people that made me light up, the people that made me laugh, the people that I thought about a lot, the people that I had a space in my heart for. I was spending more time with people like that, and not enough time with the people that that really energized and charged me when I was around them. And so that was a huge wake up call for me. That was a huge wake up call for, one, what's really important in life. What's really important, one of the key things that's really important, is to have quality relationships, whether we have them in our lives now or we need to create them, and to spend a large amount of time in those relationships, and to express how we really feel in those relationships. I was a person at that time in my life that had a very hard time expressing what I felt. I had a hard time expressing what I felt, one, because I felt that I was scared of rejection. So if they knew how I really felt about them, what if they ridiculed me or they made fun of me or they rejected me in some way? And so I would suppress it and I wouldn't say anything for fear of that. And I highly regretted that. I regretted so deeply not letting those people know what I felt because I was afraid of rejection or ridicule. The same thing as in my intimate relationships, like when I was dating somebody. It used to be this ongoing joke at the time that, Jerome doesn't know how to say the word I love you, because I wouldn't say it, because not that I wouldn't feel it for someone, not that never really felt that, but it was hard for me to say it at that time because, again, I had grown up as a kid who was ridiculed a lot for my size. I was made fun of a lot because I had a really high voice at the time. So I was called feminine a lot and joked about being gay. And so I knew what it was to be ostracized. I knew what it was to be judged and rejected. And I knew the pain of that. And I just didn't want anything. I didn't even want to open my life up to that anymore. So when I was dating somebody, the idea of me telling them that I love them and they didn't respond in kind was horrifying to me, because that was a type of rejection. Like, for me to say how much I really cared about you and then you not to say anything like that back to me at that time in my life was very horrifying to me. And on my deathbed, all of the relationships kind of scrolled past my consciousness, and I could see all of the people that I probably hurt by not telling them that I love them, and how untrue that was, and how I really cared for them, and they never were going to know. And I regretted that. I regretted not expressing what I truly felt in my heart. But the number one regret that I had on my deathbed, again, the regrets that I was having was that I didn't spend time in the relationships that I really loved, with the people that I really loved, and I didn't express myself. I didn't let them know how I really felt about them, how much I valued them, what they really meant to me, what I really appreciated about them. That was one of the main regrets. But the number one regret for me was that I didn't live my truth. That I did not live my truth. And that, we talk a lot about truth. We hear a lot about living your truth. It's kind of a catchphrase now in our culture, is you got to live your truth. But not a lot of people know what that actually means. And I want to kind of share more in depth what that meant and what I was aware of on my deathbed. So one of the aspects of living my truth was expressing my true identity. So I'm a same gender loving man, right? Or a gay man. And at that time, I was really ashamed of that and very afraid that if I truly expressed that and truly lived that out in the open and truly was out, that I would be rejected by my family, that I wouldn't be able to achieve what I really wanted to achieve in the world, that doors would be closed for me in some type of way. And so I hid myself. I suppressed that part of my identity from the public. At the time, I think my parents knew, but the rest of my family didn't know. And definitely the people at my job didn't know. And the public definitely didn't know. I didn't live life out. And so I felt really bad that I was getting ready to die, not having had a chance to really live who I really was as my identity, as an aspect of that aspect of my identity in the world. The other part of that was that the other part of part of living your truth is expressing your true identity, expressing who you are, not just your sexuality, but your quirkiness. That was another aspect. I'm really silly. I'm a really silly person. So, I tried to be so serious all the time that I suppressed a lot of my silliness because I thought I had to be so professional, all the time. And I had to look like this, especially as a black man in, the corporate world. I had to be very professional and I had to have all of my edges, together and smoothed out, and all of my T's crossed and my I's dotted, and there couldn't be anything out of place about me. And what that kept me was in this box and not able to really fully be myself. And I really regretted that when I was on my deathbed. One of the things that was the saddest part for me was that I never really knew the freedom of just being me, of just being myself in the world, of moving through the world as my full self. Right? So my full identity, the quirky, silly part of me, the one that makes jokes all the time, is laughing all the time, is silly. Also the gay part of me, the owning the part of me and expressing and living in the light that I am attracted to the same gender. That is a part of living the truth. But another part of that was that I didn't ever really follow my heart. That was a huge regret of mine, that I hadn't really followed my heart, that there were dreams of mine that I wasn't pursuing. One of the dreams, especially at that time, was I wanted to be a big singer. At that time, I wanted to sing. I wanted my life to be a singer. I wanted to make albums. I wanted to travel the world singing. And I had initially moved to DC to try and get into the music scene up there, but here I was working this job 9 to 5 and coming home. I wasn't singing anywhere. I wasn't singing in clubs. I wasn't doing anything. And I really regretted that. I literally felt like I had let my life, the life essence of who Jerome really was, slip through my fingers. And it was like the other dreams that I had about sharing and teaching spirituality, even though I was young. I had already had many mystical experiences before that, and I had known a lot about just some spiritual things and some mystical things that I wanted to share, and that I wasn't sharing those. I wasn't following my heart and teaching them anywhere. I wasn't talking about them anywhere. I wanted to write more, and I had a dream at that time to write a book, and I wasn't even in process of doing that. And I had all of these dreams that I had wanted that literally felt like they were surrounding me on my deathbed and kind of like shaking their head and saying, we were given to you. We were given to you, Jerome. No one else has us. You have us. You were charged with breathing life into us, into the world, and now we have to die with you. We have to die, and we'll never have even been able to live or have been born into this world. And I can promise you, the realization that none of my dreams had seen the light of day was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. It was one of the most painful things to realize that it felt like I had been given. It felt like, it almost makes me tear up now thinking about it, because it felt like I had been given this one precious opportunity of life to deposit my full self into this life, to deposit all of who I was, all of my identity, and to go after these dreams, deposit these dreams and express these dreams. And I had just wasted it. And I had not even made any steps towards it. And that was a huge regret of mine, that I hadn't even allowed myself to take the risk. And that's another thing, like the things that I didn't regret, are the risks that I did take in my life. Like the risk that I took, even the ones that didn't turn out to be successful for me. Like when I wanted to try and to talk to somebody I thought was attractive, and I went over there and risk it by putting myself out there, and they weren't attracted to me. I didn't regret that. Or the risk I took to moving to DC and not knowing anybody, to start a new life, or all the risk I had taken towards following my heart. Even if I had failed at it, I didn't regret those at all. I did not regret those. What I did regret was all the things that I was feeling a call towards, that I was dreaming about, that I was feeling pulled towards, that I was denying. That I was either not going because I was afraid. I was afraid of what would happen, or what if I failed, that I was not doing because I was telling myself, oh, not now, but maybe next year I'll pursue that, or maybe next year I'll start writing, or maybe next year I'll do that. All those things I regretted. But anything that I actually took a leap, I leaped at, I leaped off the edge. Even if I fell on my face, I was proud of myself on my deathbed that I did that. I was like, it was like a pat on my back. I was very proud of me that I did that. And so the other part of living my truth was that, it was expressing my identity, following my heart, and really embodying really appreciating who this being really is, right? I lived a life of shame the majority of my life. I felt ashamed of how I looked because I told you I was teased for being bigger. I was teased for sounding like a girl when I was younger. I was teased by a lot of my family members, like my cousins, because they thought I was rich because my mother's a doctor. And they teased me for being a rich kid or for being too white. I was teased a lot. And so I never really just felt good about myself as it was. And so I always tried to be somebody else. I tried to be the person who wasn't going to get ridiculed. And so or the person who wasn't going to be rejected or teased. And so that looked like, suppressing my sexuality and trying to portray like I was straight and trying to be, hyper masculine. That looked like, at the time, not really kind of downplaying my successes because I didn't want whatever success I did have, even though I was charging after these successes because I thought that made me somebody. I also would downplay the successes that I had because I didn't want it to make it feel like somebody would think, oh, who does he think he is? He's too good for us or anything. So I would downplay and I would dim my light around other people. I'd never really expressed my true spiritual beliefs, like the things that I never really talked about my psychic gifts, and I never really talked about my true spiritual beliefs, that I was beyond the kind of religious upbringing that I had been raised with. I was suppressing that. And so I was never really fully expressing who I really was, and I was never really feeling good about who this being was. And that was another big regret, that I never really moved through my life loving who I really was, really feeling good in my skin and about who I really am. And so those were the three major regrets that I have, that I didn't live my truth fully, that I didn't really feel good about who I really was, and that I didn't spend enough time in my relationships and expressing to the people that I loved how I really felt about them. And so how that changed me was, after, obviously I'm here. Not only did I survive, but if you know me a little bit about my story, you know that I miraculously healed myself 3 months after being diagnosed. And that experience began a whole awakening mystical journey for me. But what that taught me, what I learned from that experience was how to begin to really shape my life. How to shape my life so that I'm living a life that really feels like I'm honoring why I'm here. I'm honoring why my soul chose to incarnate on this planet. I'm honoring the gift of life that source gave to me, right? And what I did was I knew the building blocks for that type of life was fulfilling relationships with the people that I love, spending a lot of time in those relationships, fostering those relationships, transparency around how I felt, expressing how I really felt about those people. So one of the things I do now is I see the people that I love several times a week, whereby at that time I may have seen them once a week, maybe not, maybe at max, maybe twice, sometimes not even that, right? Even if they live afar, especially if they lived out of town, they live in the same space, I wouldn't see them maybe a few times a year, if that. Now, I purposefully am staying. A lot of people ask me, why do I still live in Oklahoma? And one of the reasons is because a lot of the relationships that nourish and fulfill me, like my parents and my family, they're here. And I get to see them. I see my parents and I hang out with them probably 2 to 3 times a week. I have some really good friends here. I see my friends probably. We hang out. We spend a night at each other's houses, even though, I'm on my late 30s. We still have slumber parties. I have fun with my friends, and I see them several times a week. Even though, I do my work and I do these videos and I see clients and all that, but the priority is to spend the majority of my time in my relationships. And I make it a very clear point to let the people know, if not every time I'm with them, at least once a week, how I really feel about them. I write people little letters that I send to them, handwritten letters sometimes. Sometimes I'll just pop in with a little email and send it to them. Sometimes I'll leave a voicemail on their message and just let them know, hey, I just want you to know I love you. And I really like this about you. I try to give someone every week something I really appreciate about them. Let them know what I appreciate about them and what I appreciate about them in my life. And that has really allowed my heart to expand, because that's the love literally pouring through my heart. I can literally feel the energy of love being more processed through me and more anchored inside of me. The other part of things that really, and what that's done is now have more fulfilling relationships. My relationships, now that I've been more transparent with people, I let them know how I feel about them. I appreciate them. People are starting to do that more to me. People are starting to let me know more often how they feel about me and what they love about me. And I found that people have moved in closer to me. My relationships are more intimate now than they've ever been before, but they've ever were before. Now, my relationships are more intimate. I have a lot more fun in my relationships. My life feels more filled with love and more grounded in belonging and connection and community, because I'm doing what I can to literally foster the time to nourish these relationships. Even with my friends who live out of town, a lot of my friends don't live in Oklahoma. A lot of my friends live on the coast. So I try to travel out several times a year to go see my friends, which I wasn't doing before. And so that's one thing that changed my life. And that's for all of you all out there, that our relationships, especially the relationships that we have with the people that we deeply love and who deeply love us, they are so vitally important to not just to the purpose of your life, but for the well-being of your life. If you want your life to feel and to be healthy and to feel delicious to you, you have to foster those relationships. You've got to spend time in those relationships, and you've got to express on a frequent and consistent basis how you really feel about the people that you love, how you feel about the people that are in your life, how you feel about your friends and your family, the people that are close to you, the people that nourish you. You've got to get that out. And what you'll find is that not only will you feel healthier, you must be much happier, and you'll feel more expanded. My being feels more expanded these days because of that practice alone. The other thing that I did that's different about my life today is to really work on loving myself. I've talked a lot about that, but really work on having an unconditional positive regard for myself, how I think about myself, how I feel about myself, how I behave towards myself, the choices I make for myself, really are based in acceptance and appreciation and honoring of this one unique being that I am and this one unique life that I've been given to live. And what that has done is, God, if you know anything about the law of attraction, you know that the number one rule for the law of attraction is to feel good. The better that you feel, the more you begin to attract your desires, the more you begin to manifest a well-functioning life. The healthier your body is. But it's impossible to feel good if we don't feel good about ourselves. It's impossible. It's impossible to feel good on a consistent basis. You may feel good for an hour. You may feel good for a day. You may be able to string together maybe 2 days or 3 days where you can feel good. But if you don't feel good about yourself, your set point, your vibrational set point is going to come back to how you feel. And you're not going to be able to attract what you really want. You're not going to, on a consistent basis. If you do attract what you want, you're not going to be able to keep it, because our lives, our entire lives and the health of our bodies are reflections and manifestations of how we feel about ourselves. So the better you feel about yourselves, the healthier you become and the better stuff you manifest. the less you feel about yourself. If you feel unworthy, if you feel unattractive, if you feel that you're not smart, if you feel that something about you is not enough in some way, then you're going to find it hard to live a life that feels good to you and tastes good to you, a life that is fulfilling to you, a life that seems to expand and celebrate you. So I've made it like my number one priority really is to feel good about myself, to do whatever I can to feel good about myself. That required me healing some emotional trauma that I had. I told you that I grew up feeling fat, feeling that being gay was something that meant something was wrong with me, that if I was too successful, then I wouldn't belong. And so all of those type of things, I had to really work on healing those things and changing those belief systems and healing those things and learning how to appreciate and accept myself just as I am, whether I'm successful or not, whether I am overtly feminine at the moment or not, whether I am accepted in the eyes of others or not. So that part changed my life as well, learning how to really embrace and accept and appreciate and celebrate myself no matter what, unconditionally. And the last part of that really changed my life, that was based on the regrets, was making sure that above all else I'm living my truth. That I am expressing myself, my true identity, even in situations where I feel like that may not be safe. Because I know that in the times where I feared that it wouldn't be safe and I hid myself to protect myself, what I believed was protecting me was actually harming me. It was actually draining the joy out of my life. It was draining the freedom out of my life. Because that was one thing I realized on my deathbed, was that I never felt free. I didn't know what freedom really was because I never really lived my true life. I never really expressed who I was and followed my heart and followed my dreams. That I never really did that. And so my life felt like bondage. The life that I had been living felt like a prison. And so today I make sure that I have a sense of liberation by making sure that I'm expressing who I really am, that I'm following my heart, that if there's something I really want to do, even if it sounds ridiculous, even if it's not rational, that I follow it. That even if it goes against the advice or the well wishes or the opinions of other people in my life. It could be my medical team. It could be my family. It could be my friends. It could be people that I work with. If I feel a strong feeling in my heart, and my heart says, do this, go over here, have this experience, say this, that I have to follow that. And that if I don't follow that, then that leads to all types of problems. It leads to dysfunction in my life. It leads to unhappiness in my life. It leads to me feeling imprisoned again. It leads to me feeling disconnected from myself. So that's one of the things that is highly important, is that I follow my heart no matter what. And that, that I am in service to my dreams. That I am following what I believe, what I'm passionate about, what my deepest desires are, and what I know makes me happy. That I am in service to that every day. That I'm doing something that moves me towards that. Not something overwhelmingly and stressfully that I'm wearing myself out. But that I am the way I am living my life is a way in which I am in service to that. So if you'll see, if you've been following for a while, you recognize like now I'm writing a lot more. I am bringing more of my story out because this is even an effort now to even live more of my truth, to bring more of like now I share a lot about my psychic gifts, which is something I used to not do for a long time. Again, because I was afraid. I was afraid of rejection. So I share a lot about I base my entire work now on my gifts. I base my entire work on my story and what I've learned about self-love and alignment. I'm in the process of writing the book. There's a lot of things that are going into it. So hopefully that will be finished in 2018, but I am in the process of that. And I've built a whole life based on who I really am. I've built a whole life based on the expression of my authentic self. And what that has caused is me to be happy. I am so much more happy than I've been in the past, because my life is based upon who I really am, and I have a sense of freedom and liberation. I have a sense of joy because I'm following my passions, and I am basing my life in what pleases me, what brings me joy. And I have a sense of fulfillment because I am in service to my relationships, and um, I'm in love with myself. I am really, really in love with myself. So those were kind of the three areas that really transformed my life when I began to change that. When I began to implement those things in my life, they dramatically changed my life to where my life not only feels good to me, I have fulfilling and nourishing relationships in my life. All the relationships in my life feel good to me. They are very intimate relationships, very at a deeper level than I've ever known before. I'm my true self in those relationships. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not suppressing anything. And I have people in my life that support that expression of myself. I'm doing work in the world. That was another thing to do, that I'm doing work in the world. I'm basing my work off of things that are really me. I'm basing my work off of, the things I learned about the soul and loving myself and alignment and healing. And I'm living a life that feels like it's truly mine. And I'm really starting to anchor that more in my being. And those three things are really the keys to that. Those three things are really the keys to living a life that feels like, that makes me feel alive. That makes me feel like it's a life that's truly mine. It's a life worth living. And if I was to die tomorrow, that I wouldn't have any regrets about. And those are the keys. So I wanted to come and share those with you. For all of you all who are in lives right now that may not taste good to you, in lives right now that if you knew that if you were facing your death tomorrow, you really wouldn't be happy with how you lived your life. You really wouldn't have a sense of completion and fulfillment. And although I'm not looking forward to dying anytime soon, and although I'm not asking for death anytime soon, I know that if it came, I would have a sense of completion. I would have a sense of fulfillment, and that I would feel like I was beginning to express who I really was on the planet, and that I had fulfilling relationships, and the people that I'm in relationship who know how I felt about them. There's nothing left unsaid, right? And that I was really appreciative of the being that I am. So my purpose for this video was really to give you those kind of regrets, and to see for check-ins, not judgments, not beating up on ourselves, but just check in to see if you are having some of the same regrets, and what you can use from what I found out about how to turn those regrets around to begin to live a better life. What can you do in your life to live more of your truth? What can you do in your life to begin to appreciate and accept yourself more, and to stop judging yourself and beating up on yourself and being ashamed of yourself? And what can you do in your life to begin to nourish the relationships that you have? Like, how can you spend more time with the people you really care about, that you really like? And what have you not said to them? Do they know how you really feel about them? Do they know what you really love about them? Do they know, are you doing the things with them that you really want to do? Are you traveling? Are you being silly? Are you going out to eat more? Whatever that is, foster and nourish your relationships. They are so important. Live the true expression of your life that you're being called to live, because I can promise you that that's going to be your biggest regret when this is all over, whether it's over, this year, or in 40 or 50 or 60 years down the road. If you get to the end of your days and you didn't live your true life, you will regret that most of all. And love yourself, because everything gets better when you do. Everything gets better when you do. There's going to be another video on that, just really entitled, Everything Gets Better When You Love Yourself. But those are the keys. Those were the regrets, that I didn't love myself, that I didn't ever be my true self and didn't live my true life, and that I hadn't really expressed how I really felt to the people I loved, and I didn't spend the type of time with them that I wanted to spend. So I hope this has helped you. If this has helped you and you want to share this with somebody that you know could benefit from hearing this, please feel free to share this. If you had an aha and you like to share that, please leave me a comment in that. I love to hear what this brought up for you. But until then, know that I love you, that I am intending for you to heal, to live well, and to flourish. And please know that what I've shared today is the key in all of that. Much love. Bye.